My life in Zhytomyr was like expensive, yet empty, shop windows. I'm only 27, married to Oleg, and our marriage is a golden cage in a quiet, respectable neighborhood. Oleg is a high-ranking official, always traveling, Kiev, Warsaw, sometimes Germany. For the third day now, I had been wandering through our spacious, too-quiet four-room wing, enjoying my freedom but suffocating from boredom. Usually, I could handle this loneliness, but this time, I craved something sharper. Oleg left for an entire week, and I knew I would return to my usual ritual, expensive clothes, an exquisite dinner alone, a cold bed. That's when I called my sister, Elena. Tearfully, with a trembling voice, I told her how afraid I was to be alone in such a big house, how the wind rustled in the old pines outside. It was a lie. The only thing I was afraid of was my own predictability. Well, Verochka, you're our strong woman, Lena reassured me. But if that's the case, I'll come over now, we'll sit together a bit. And then take my Denis. Oh, Lenachka, I don't know, I drawled, he's already so grown up, 21, studying in, what's the name, Lviv. He probably won't want to come to our province. He will. I'll tell him you're sick. He's so responsible. He'll help you around the house, with groceries, he's my strong boy. Strong boy. That's it. A fetish. My secret attraction to youthful, raw, physical strength has always been my weakness. I love seeing the contrast between my refined, expensive femininity and rough, functional masculine power. I love feeling fragile next to a champion. I immediately began to prepare. I went to the dressing room, searching for the perfect weapon. I chose a bodycon, midi dress the color of ripe plum. The fabric was thick, yet accentuated every curve of my body without vulgar explicitness. The collar was high, up to the neck, giving a false modesty, but the length and fitted cut left no doubt about my figure. With the dress, I put on my favorite boots, tall, suede thigh-highs with thin stiletto heels. They weren't for warmth, but for power. Each of my steps on the polished parquet was accompanied by a clear, confident click of my heels. That sound, my second fetish, the sound of control. I wanted Denis to hear it before he even saw me. When the doorbell rang, I was ready. My jasmine perfume mingled with the scent of expensive leather from my boots. Opening the door, I nearly dropped my keys. Denis stood before me. The last time I'd seen him was a year ago, and he was still just a teenager. Now, he was a tall, broad-shouldered young man. His khaki polo shirt looked like it might burst at the biceps. He stood slightly hunched, as if trying to hide his strength, but his neck was tense, and his blue-eyed gaze was heavy and embarrassed. He was a man. Hello, Aunt Vera. Mom said you're not feeling well? His voice was deep and uncertain. I smiled, wide and predatory. Deniska, I exclaimed, using the affectionate nickname, but in a tone that was anything but affectionate. My, you've gotten so big. I'm not unwell. I'm bored and lonely. Come in. I stepped back, and the sound of my heels made him flinch. He entered, and for a moment, our bodies were much too close. I felt his warmth and the scent of clean male sweat mixed with cheap cologne, a fresh, unmasked smell of youthful strength. Lena didn't stay long, quickly drank her tea, and got ready to leave. Well, Deniska, you're in charge here. Protect your aunt, make sure she's not scared. He's an athlete, Vera, don't worry about anything. I understand, Lena. Thank you so much. I trust him 100%, I replied, exchanging a long, tense look with Denis. When the door closed behind Lena, a thick, saturated silence filled the apartment. Denis stood in the middle of the living room, not knowing what to do with his hands. I walked up to him, but stopped a step away. Well, my protector? Where do we start? I need to cook something cozy, something homemade. Slowly, without taking my eyes off his face, I ran my fingertips along my tall, plum-colored collar and then down my slender waist. In the meantime, take off that shirt. It looks tight on you. Relax. You're the master here now. I gave Dennis a moment to process my command. My voice was soft, but carried an unyielding confidence. I wanted to see embarrassment battling desire in his eyes. Hesitantly, he reached for the collar of his polo shirt. "I'm not hot, Aunt Vera," he mumbled, but his face was burning. "I know you're not hot, Dennis. I know you're tense. You've come a long way, and I want my protector to be relaxed." I took another step, closing the distance to 1/2 meter. My boots clicked loudly once, emphasizing my status. "Or are you shy about your strength?" That question worked. It was a direct challenge to his pride, to the masculine power I so clearly adored. He sighed and quickly pulled the shirt over his head. The world around me narrowed. Now he stood before me, bare-chested. His body was perfectly sculpted, broad, steel shoulders, a flat stomach, and the defined chest muscles of an athlete. I couldn't look away. It was a raw display of strength, that very same rough, youthful power that was absolute temptation for me. "That's much better," I whispered, feeling my cheeks burn. I needed to stay in control. "I'll go change. I need to take off this armor, too. In the meantime, put on something calm." I quickly headed to the bedroom. My heels clattered as I walked, giving him time to take in what he'd seen and prepare for the next phase. In the bedroom, I slipped off my plum dress and, with pleasure, my high over-the-knee boots. I chose a home outfit that was the complete opposite of my previous look, a satin kimono robe and a slip in a nude, wet sand color. The robe was long, but the silk underneath was incredibly thin and slippery. I tied the robe loosely so it would flow with every movement, hinting at what was underneath without revealing anything. Instead of stilettos, satin ballet slippers that made my steps completely silent. I had transformed from a woman of power into a woman of mystery. I returned to the living room. Dennis was sitting on the couch, carelessly covering his torso with a couch pillow, but his eyes burned when I appeared. I glided across the room, the satin of my robe softly rustling. This sound of silk became a new fetish, replacing the loud clack of heels, a whisper of luxury and intimacy. "Did you pick a movie?" I asked as I sat down beside him. The closeness of his bare body was overwhelming. I could feel the heat of his skin. "I can't concentrate, Aunt Vera," he admitted honestly, his voice hoarse. I smiled. "Mission accomplished. We'll have some tea, my protector. And talk about your achievements." I poured tea, and as I handed him a cup, our fingers touched. His touch was hot and awkward. I let my hand linger for a second longer than necessary. "You're very strong, Dennis. You must have a lot of girlfriends in Lviv," I said, studying the contours of his muscles, visible in the dim light of the room. He took a deep breath, and I saw his abs tense. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about helping you. I need your help, Deniska." "But not to fix a faucet," I said, shifting my gaze to his lips. It was the most direct confession I could give. I moved even closer. My knee now touched his thigh through his tight jeans. It was a constant electric contact. "I'm so cold in this big house," I lied, even though the apartment was warm. "I need your warmth." And I placed my hand on his bare shoulder. My thin, manicured fingers on his hot, hard skin. The contrast drove me wild. I began to gently stroke him in a massaging motion. It was more than a massage. It was an exploration of his strength, a worship of it. "You have amazing muscles, my protector. Truly masculine." I felt his body tremble under my hand. In that moment, I knew he had lost control and given it to me. "Aunt Vera," he breathed out. "You're Vera," I corrected him, and leaned in to run my lips along his ear. My touch on his bare shoulder and the whisper directly in his ear broke the last barriers. Dennis inhaled sharply, and his hand instinctively landed on my waist, pulling me closer. There was so much awkward, uncontrollable strength in that gesture that my heart raced with excitement and anticipation. "I know what you're feeling." "My protector," I said, savoring how his hot, hard skin contrasted with the smooth, cool satin of my robe. "I feel it too." I slowly pulled away, but my hand remained on his shoulder, a sign of possession. He looked at me, his blue eyes clouded with desire. In that moment, he was just a man, and I was just a woman. "Come, Dennis," I said, rising from the couch. The satin of my robe rustled softly, as if calling him to follow. "It's too bright and public here." I went to the bedroom. He followed me. No questions, no doubts. My silent slippers made me elusive, while his heavy, quick steps sounded like a surrendering rhythm. My bedroom was decorated in deep, velvety tones, my secret boudoir style. Thick suede curtains in dark burgundy always hung over the windows, creating an atmosphere of constant twilight and isolation from Zitomir. The only light came from frosted sconces by the headboard. He stopped at the entrance, his torso illuminated by the sconces, looking sculpted. "I like it here, Aunt Vera," he said, taking in the surroundings. "This is my sanctuary, Dennis. And now, ours." "Help me, please," I said, approaching the dresser and pretending to struggle with a heavy wooden jewelry box. "I need your strength." He came over immediately. His bare torso was dangerously close to my face. He lifted the box easily, and I, seizing the moment, placed my palm on his abs. They were hard, hot as stone. "You're simply incredible." "Your strength conquers me," I confessed. This was the pure, unfiltered truth of my fetish. Then I went to the bed. It was covered with a heavy light velour bedspread. "Take it off, my strong one." "It's too heavy for me," I asked, pointing to the bedspread. He pulled it off in one motion, tossing it to the floor. Now only the ivory silk sheets remained on the bed. It was a pure, intimate canvas. I stood between him and the bed. There were now less than 10 centimeters between us. I raised my hands to adjust my hair, and the satin robe fell open, revealing only the silhouette of my body beneath the sheer slip. I could feel his gaze burning through me. "I need your warmth, Dennis. It's so cold here without Oleg." My voice grew weak and pleading, full of feminine vulnerability. I wrapped my arms around his torso, pressing myself against his hot body. It was an act of surrender, but surrender was my complete victory. He embraced me in return, and his strong arms lifted me so easily, as if I were a feather. He buried his face in my neck, and I felt his uneven breathing. "Aunt Vera, what are we doing?" he rasped. "We're doing what a man and a woman should do when they're lonely and when they want each other, Dennis. And here, you are my master." I kissed him, gently at first, then demandingly. And in that first, long kiss, I felt all his youth, strength, and passion. It was a perfect, forbidden satisfaction. I knew this night would be ours. But I also knew that morning would bring the necessity to lie and to continue the game, and that was part of my plan. I woke up to the first timid ray of sunlight breaking through the thick suede curtains. My body was relaxed and content, but my mind immediately returned to its role, control. Dennis slept beside me. His powerful arm lay across my waist, and I felt the rhythmic beating of his heart. He was young, strong, and mine. In that moment, I felt absolute, dark satisfaction. I carefully slipped out of his embrace and quietly got out of bed. My first move was to go to the wardrobe. I put on a long satin robe the color of wet sand, my morning armor. The cool satin touched my skin, and I felt the role of lover shift to that of mistress of the house. I went into the living room to make coffee. I needed to restore distance and establish new rules. When Dennis, wearing only jeans, appeared in the kitchen, his face was a mixture of embarrassment and pride. He avoided my gaze, but his posture was different, more confident, more masculine. "Good morning, protector," I said, gently but firmly. "Your Aunt Vera," he began, but I immediately interrupted him. "You're Vera. We had an agreement." I set a cup of strong coffee in front of him. "You must remember what happened last night. But no one must ever know about it." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed over my chest. My satin robe was perfectly draped, creating the image of an unattainable but desirable woman. "Oleg is coming back tonight," I announced, watching his reaction. "You have to leave before lunch. You must return to Lviv. Or to your mother." He panicked. Seeing his disappointment, I felt omnipotent. "But I would like to stay, Vera. I can help you. You've already helped me, Deniska." And that was the most valuable thing I'd received in years. "Now listen to the rules of our game." I approached him and slowly ran my fingertips over his hot, bare shoulder. He shuddered and closed his eyes. "Rule 1, you are my personal bodyguard. Your visit is justified only by my loneliness and fear in this big house. Rule 2, you come every time Oleg leaves for a long time. No questions, no delay. And Rule 3, the most important, when you're here, you are my man. When you leave, you are my nephew." I took his chin, making him look me in the eyes. "Can you handle this role, my strong one?" He exhaled heavily. His masculine pride would not let him back down. "I can handle it, Vera. I will come." I smiled. Victory. After he left, I felt emptiness, but now it was a fulfilled emptiness, filled with anticipation. This ritual became our life for many months. Kiev, Warsaw, Munich, wherever Oleg went, Dennis always came to Zhytomyr. Every time he entered the house, I felt a surge of strength. I watched as his young, powerful figure entered my refined but cold life, and I blossomed. Seduction became an art, a secret fetish. I loved seeing his brute strength surrender to my feminine sophistication. 8 months passed. The ritual was never broken. I became addicted to him, to his warmth, to the sound of his footsteps, and to the way his muscles tensed under my hand. Dennis was supposed to come today. Oleg had flown to Belarus for 3 days. I was laying out laundry in the bedroom when I received a strange message from Dennis. "Vera, I can't talk right now. But this is a complete nightmare." Then his call followed. I answered immediately. "Dennis, where are you? Why aren't you coming?" "I'm not in Lviv, Vera. I'm in Berdichev. At the district clinic. You need to come immediately." "What happened? Are you hurt?" For the first time, real fear sounded in my voice. "No. It's not about me. It's about us." His voice was trembling. He spoke haltingly. "I had some tests done here. Because of my sports insurance. And the doctors confirmed I'm absolutely healthy and very fertile." I didn't understand. My mind got stuck on the word fertile. "So what? Did you find someone in Lviv?" "No, you don't understand." I remembered how Oleg always joked that he couldn't have children, that he had a problem after surgery. I didn't believe it. "But then, you said you'd been feeling strange these past weeks." My heart started beating wildly. I abruptly sat down on the edge of the bed. I really had been feeling awful, morning nausea, constant fatigue. I blamed it on the stress of lying. "Dennis, what are you trying to say?" I whispered. "I bought a test, Vera. Yesterday. Just in case. I don't know how to tell you this, but it's positive. And if Oleg can't have children, and I definitely can," there was dead silence. I looked at the silk bed linens and the heavy suede curtains that hid our world. A secret built on satin and strength shattered to pieces. "I'm pregnant." My voice was not my own. "Yes, Vera. And it's my child. And I don't know what we're going to do now. Oleg is supposed to return in 2 days." I panicked. My head spun with terror. My husband must never find out that his nephew had given him an heir. "I don't even know what to do, Dennis," I screamed into the phone. And then the apartment door burst open. "Vera." "I forgot my documents on the table," came Oleg's loud, confident voice. He was supposed to be in Belarus. I abruptly hung up the call. Oleg stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at me. I pressed my hand to my stomach, and my satin robe suddenly felt transparent and useless. This was our game. But I never thought there would be stakes, raced through my mind. I abruptly hung up the call. Oleg's heels clicked loudly and impatiently on the marble hallway floor. "Vera, are you deaf?" I left the contract folder on the table. His voice was irritated, but routine. He had no idea about the disaster unfolding behind closed doors. I stood by the bed, pressing my hand to my stomach. For the first time in months, my satin robe didn't make me feel powerful. It felt like thin, torn paper. Oleg entered the bedroom. He stopped, his gaze sliding over the crumpled bedspread on the floor and lingering on my pale face and swollen belly. Although it was only the 3rd month, I was petite and my clothes couldn't hide the slight roundness I'd blamed on a broken diet. "What's wrong with you? You're white as a sheet. You've been crying." His tone shifted to condescending concern. "No," my voice was a hoarse whisper. "I'm just tired. And I'm not feeling well." "Your nerves again." He walked to the table, picked up the black folder, and quickly headed for the door. "Get some rest. I told you, don't be bored." He was already at the door when I realized it was my only chance. If he leaves, I won't make it. I needed his presence to hide my panic. "Oleg," I shouted, the sound of my own voice sobering me. He turned around. "I'm pregnant," I declared. It was a lie that was true. It was a confession that was a sentence. For a second, something unreadable flashed in his eyes, a mix of shock and suspicion. He froze. In our bedroom, in this sanctuary, a lie collided with reality. "What did you say?" He came back, his expensive leather shoes stopping abruptly at the edge of the silk carpet. "I'm pregnant, Oleg. I just found out. I feel awful. I need you to stay." I knew about Oleg's vasectomy, done 10 years ago after his first failed marriage, which he told me about distrustfully at the start of our affair, as the reason I didn't need to worry. That certainty was the foundation of our forbidden romance. Oleg slowly approached me. His face was tense. He looked at my stomach, then into my eyes. "Pregnant. By whom?" His voice was quiet, but steely. I had to strike first. I grabbed his hand and pressed it to my belly. "How can you even ask that?" "By whom?" "By you, of course. You know how I waited for you. How I prayed. This is our miracle, Oleg. After so many years, you know doctors can be wrong." I started playing the part of a happy but frightened woman. This was my last chance. You shouldn't have gone to Belarus. I'm so scared. Please, cancel everything. Stay with me, my husband. He pulled his hand away. He didn't believe me. I saw it in his cold, calculating gaze. I can't have children, Vera. Doctors don't make mistakes about these things. Are you sure? Have you been checked in recent years? I pressed on his weak spot, his overconfidence. I knew he hadn't been checked. He lived with the certainty that the problem was solved and that I was a reliable, non-pregnant accessory. It's impossible. I'll check, he muttered, pulling out his phone. Fine. Check. But right now, you need to stay with your wife and future child. He looked at me, at my slippery, flowing satin, at the velvet curtains hiding all our lies, and at my brazen, desperate mask. He saw not a woman, but a puzzle to be solved. He was intrigued and enraged. Suddenly, his gaze fell on my phone, which I had left on the bedside table. The name Dennis was still glowing on the screen. Oleg slowly walked to the table. He picked up my phone. I didn't have time to move. Dennis, your nephew. You were just talking to him. His voice was even quieter than before. He looked at me, then at the phone. He put two and two together, his infertility, my panic, the sudden pregnancy, and a call from a young, strong relative. I understand everything, Vera. He threw my phone on the floor. There was a dry, cracking sound, the bedroom mirror shattered from the vibration. The shards symbolized the fragments of my life. Oleg